Welcome to Money Lion MMA coverage of UFC 280. Charles Oliveira facing Islam Makhachev. This fight is occurring Saturday, October 22nd in Abu Dhabi. Therefore, here to us United States residents, this will be a day card with the prelims beginning at 9 a.m. Central Time. We are going to open up starting with the main event here, as we have in the past few weeks here, starting with Charles Oliveira defending his lightweight belt against Islam Makhachev. Jose, this is one that I think since it was announced, the entire UFC world has been so excited to see. Islam has been hyped and hyped and hyped and hyped as this guy who's better than Khabib, and he's going to be the best lightweight to ever see the octagon for the UFC, this and that. He's 22-1, pretty much dominating everyone that he's fought, except some no-name back in 2015. This is truly an interesting spot for Oliveira as well. He hasn't lost a fight since, 2017 against Paul Felder, who's also an incredible fighter. Yet he finds himself as the underdog. Islam Makhachev minus 170 as the title challenger against Oliveira plus 132. Jose, this is something I'm so curious to see what you have to say as a guy who's backed Oliveira. And I was wrong when I thought Oliveira was going to lose to Gaethje, and he didn't. And at this point, I'm second guessing myself, thinking like, should I really bet against this guy at this point?
Exactly, you're right on. It's really hard to bet against Charles Oliveira, especially everything he's done. That impressive 11-fight win streak, and he's pretty close to just beating, 2 fights away. He's 2 wins away, well, at least 1 win away from tying Tony Ferguson's incredible run. And Islam Makhachev himself, he's on a 10-fight winning streak. And yeah, Islam, like you said, I think Islam is probably going to be a better version of Khabib to some extent, but why Charles Oliveira is the betting underdog, you're right. Like, look what he's done and look what he's come back. But the reason why I think he may be the betting underdog in this case is because we've seen him almost get put out by Michael Chandler. We saw Michael Chandler almost win. We saw Justin Gaethje rock him, and Dustin Poirier. They all landed good shots on him that, at some point it's like, whoa, like, we've seen him face adversity and look vulnerable. And that's why I think he is the betting underdog in this case, as opposed to Islam. Dude comes out and just mauls people, and he just looks unstoppable, like Khabib did, just a tank. It's like, yo, what is this guy's weaknesses? Like you said, he hasn't lost in a minute to Adriano Martins back in October of 2015. That's already... Man, that was 2015. That was already 7 years ago. So he's got a lot of experience and wins then. What I will say is maybe his level of competition doesn't compare to Charles Oliveira's level of competition. So that is my one only argument. But people have always said that about Khabib as well, including myself. But in the end, when you put them against those big names, that's when they start to shine. And that's why I think coming into this fight, they're both heavy grapplers. And Islam, he puts top heavy pressure, and Charles is good at fighting off his back. But I think people will be surprised to see how good Islam really is. And I think this fight is going to be a strong, heavy grappling fight. On the feet, I'm not sure. I think Charles Oliveira probably would look the best on the feet. What are your thoughts on that?
For sure, yeah. That's one point I was going to make, is that Charles Oliveira, I think, would be smart to keep this on the feet. He is a phenomenal wrestler, great jiu-jitsu, and he's used it to win many previous fights, including against the previous 2 fights, Gaethje and Poirier. I just, like you said, Makhachev is another animal here, and I do think Oliveira has the striking advantage, and I would try and utilize that if I was Oliveira. I'm very concerned if I am going to pick Oliveira in this fight, because like you said, man, Makhachev is a beast. He's going to bring it. And it's just one of those spots that does not make me feel confident when Makhachev's got everything. Oh, it really almost seems like everything's going for him. He's got previous experience. It's not like, because what I'm explaining is that back in July 2021, he had the fight night against Thiago Moises where he won, but it was a 5-round fight is what I'm trying to say, is that he's got experience outside of just these 3-round fights that a lot of guys don't have going into championship fights. So that does concern me, because one point I also wanted to make is that I don't see this being a fight that either guy is able to finish early on. Previously, Oliveira's able to win his fights in the following: first round, third round, second round, third round, and third round, first round. And four of those were 5 round fights. So that's crazy to me that Oliveira's finishing guys so efficiently. And same with Makhachev, man. Makhachev's last 2 fights in the first round, then he chokes out Moises in the fourth round. So that's the one fight that either of these two guys have gone past the third round. It's just wild. These guys are finishers. But that being said, I actually see this going over 2.5 rounds. Personally, I see this fight going into the championship rounds, and that's going to be what really makes the difference to me. No matter if it's Makhachev 2-1 going into round 4 or if it's Oliveira 2-1 going into round 4, I think rounds 4 or 5 are going to be the 2 rounds that make the biggest difference.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really want to see more of Islam later in the rounds, but you know what's crazy? He actually made it to the fourth round against Thiago Moises back last year. While it's been a minute actually, because Charles Oliveira's just been on a finishing streak or only gained 3 round fights. He hasn't gone past the third round in. God, man, I'm not even seeing that on his record right now. Scrolling on, he's never made it past actually the third round, to be honest. So I never even thought of that. Like Charles Oliveira, I want to see him in that fourth round compared to Islam Makhachev, because he at least has one fight in the fourth round. So that's something I'm really interested to see, because Islam's going to bring his style of grappling is different. That's Dagestani wrestling is very strong grappling. Everything they do is just powerful grip, throwing you around and just like almost anti jujitsu in a way. They put so much top pressure on you. They just give you no space to elevate and create leverage to go for submissions when you're on the bottom. So the way I look at it, I think Islam is pretty much gonna try to keep Charles against the cage, put him down, and pretty much ground and pound the night away. I would not be closed off from a submission win by either guy, to be honest, because I do think Islam could possibly even submit Charles Oliveira. That's how good. I mean, we've seen him get a Kimura win before. So, I mean, Islam himself, even though Charles does have 21 impressive submissions on his record, for 22 wins in Islam, 10 of those wins are via submission. So I'm pretty confident in his submission skills as well. And I think his strength and his proven track record of making it to the fourth round, I think, in my opinion, will make him the new champion of the 155-pound division. So for this fight, you can have Islam winning this, and I think he is going to win it beyond the 3 rounds, because I do think Charles Oliveira is tough. They're both really extremely tough fighters to put down. So that's why I don't think it's going to be finished within the first 3 rounds. I'm going to go with Islam in the later championship rounds.
Yeah, so at least we can both then agree that it will be a longer, in terms of these guys' previous fights. It'll be a longer fight. It'll be one where I think they, feel each other out a little bit, and they'll get at it. Don't get me wrong. But man, I personally, as a betting man over here, I see way too much value in plus 132 on the current champion. He has some weight struggles, had some internal struggles, right? Some coaching struggles, because I doubt it was his, in a lot of cases, these fighters not making weight isn't all on them. And those things need to be really ironed out. But he showed the ability to persevere against Gaethje. If a guy was going to be down in the dumps and give up anytime, it would have been against Justin Gaethje. He chokes him out anyways in the first round. So I don't know, man. I see too much going for Oliveira right now to bet against him. I want to see it happen first. So personally, I got to take Oliveira on this fight. I will agree on over 2.5 rounds, but I mean, you're right. Oliveira could be submitted. He has been submitted in the past, albeit it's been a while. It's been since like 2016 when Anthony Pettis choked him out and Ricardo Lemus also choked him out. So it's been done, right? But it's just been so long. I've said it in previous shows, man. Things that happened back in 2016, they don't affect me. These are completely different fighters, completely different mindsets, completely different life experiences. Give me Charles Oliveira as the underdog here. I think this could be some of the best value on the card.
Well, awesome, Nick. You guys heard it there. Both Nick and I. Nick for the betting underdog Charles Oliveira, and I for the betting favorite Islam Makhachev. And for the next fight of the night, the co-main event of the night, we have a bantamweight bout between it's for the strap. We have Aljamain Sterling versus former champ TJ Dillashaw. Right now, Aljamain Sterling is the betting favorite at minus 174, while TJ Dillashaw is the betting underdog at plus 136. This fight really excites me because TJ Dillashaw historically has been one of my favorite fighters to watch. When I first started watching the UFC, I was a big fan of Chad Mendez and Uriah Faber, and this is just right before he won his rematch against Renan Barao for the championship. And after that, I was kind of hooked just off his cardio, but there was all that controversy with the performance enhancers and whatnot, and when he was trying to cut weight against Henry Cejudo, kind of tainted his legacy. And on the other hand, Aljamain Sterling, he kind of was able to put to silence a lot of the critics that were, kind of being harsh on him for the way he won the belt against Peter Yan the first go around. But you can't take away what he's done to people like Corey Sandhagen, just manhandling him and taking his back and going for the submission win, as well as putting up just overall an impressive overall 8-fight winning streak since. So the dude's just been killing it. What are your thoughts on this, Nick? Seeing that Sterling is coming in as the betting favorite.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not surprised to see Sterling coming in as the favorite. He proved people wrong, including myself. I had Peorian in the rematch earlier this year, and he absolutely proved us wrong. It was a split decision. Piotr had a great couple rounds, but to me, that fight, I don't know, it's not as telling as the split decision says. Aljamain did a wonderful job in that fight. I look at TJ Dillashaw and I understand he's a beast. He's a champ, former champ, and he's been there, done that with the top echelon of the UFC. I'm just not sure it's his time anymore, man. I'm not saying he's necessarily that old. He's 3 years older than the Funk Master, so it's not like he's 36. He's still got time left, but I think the Funk Master is just so good in all facets of the game here. I think no matter what TJ tries to go for, Aljamain's going to be ready to counter it. Yeah, I don't know. I was almost thinking Aljamain might be a little heavier of a favorite, but I do see, with the history that TJ has, you have to respect his ability to make it and beat guys like Cody Garbrandt and stuff like that. But the problem for me is just that we haven't seen him enough. Like, he took all of 2020 off and most of 2019 off after losing to Henry Cejudo. Too much, maybe I'm too heavy on the recency bias, but I've seen a lot more out of Aljamain Sterling lately than I have TJ. And that's telling because Aljamain fought once in 2021. And so far, this will be his second fight and probably, his second fight of 2022. And it'll be the last fight of 2022 for him. So it's not like he's insanely active, but for what we've seen, it's been pretty dominant. Although I will say, he got the belt in the first fight against Peorian. I think Peorian wins that fight for sure. But there was the point to me is the difference that Aljamain made from March 6, 2021 to April 9th, 2022, fighting the same man. He looked way different. And I think he can continue to evolve his game even as a champion, knowing what TJ Dillashaw brings to the table.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I think for this one, I think the champ has it down. TJ, the thing is, again, I'm kind of backtracking a bit, like, about his legacy though. Like, how good was he, before, after, when he was on some substances? So I truly think he's not the same fighter. He's still a good fighter, but not the same fighter. I mean, yeah, he got that split decision win over Corey Sandhagen, but overall, I think one of his strong suits is his wrestling. And I don't know. Like, I think Aljamain Sterling is going to be strong enough to kind of manhandle him and take his back. What will he choke him out? I don't know because, like I said, TJ has great wrestling. He actually has an 86% takedown defense. So as long as Sterling can set up the combinations and press him against the wall and just try to, what Sterling does when he puts a fighter against the cage, he hooks his legs around and hangs on to them and pretty much just slowly just tries to take the back while they're standing. TJ Dillashaw, I can see that being a thing. I can see Sterling trying to be, close to him like glue. And not to mention that, if that doesn't work out, I do think Sterling will still win on the feet. TJ Dillashaw throws 5.26 significant strikes per minute. So he does throw a high volume, but so does Sterling with 4.56. And Sterling has a 4-inch reach advantage over TJ. It's going to be hard not to go with Aljo. So yeah, you can have me down for Sterling as well.
Yeah, man. Personally, I think Sterling is going to be my lock this week. Pick subject to change, of course, but just based off of the matchup here, and of course we're strictly talking about the main card. I might have some separate feelings about some of the prelim matchups, but as far as the main card goes, I think I'm definitely most confident in Sterling being able to take this W. And he's not even as big of a favorite as Petr Yan, who we've been discussing a lot. And we'll be discussing even more coming up soon, which I'm very excited for. But regardless, give me Aljamain Sterling here. I agree. And at this point, he is my lock. I don't have a current win method bet. I don't have a round bet. I just want to bet straight up Aljamain Sterling. Now, speaking of Petr Yan, we get to discuss him even further, Jose. This is one that I'm personally most excited for on this card. As exciting as the belts are to be contested and all that, there's a lot of hype coming on here. Obviously, I think Sean O'Malley at this point is a bigger name than anyone else on this card. I think Sean O'Malley could draw more people to the crowd than any other people on this card. Maybe I'm wrong, but at this point, he is the real deal in the UFC. I don't know, man. I gotta respect Sean O'Malley for taking this fight, man. Petr Yan is freaking nuts. And we look at Petr Yan's history. He's only lost to the Funk Master, with of course one of those being the DQ, in which in my opinion, he wins that fight if he doesn't, knee Aljamain in the head on the ground. So I don't know, man. To me, he should be 16 or 17-2 and only one loss in the UFC coming off last April now. But this is still a tough one, dude. I went back and forth. So it's one of those fights that I can't say I'm as confident in as I am Aljamain Sterling, but I definitely think I lean Yan here. One thing that concerns me, of course, is the size difference. But I guess what I'm thinking here is more or less established dominance against other top opponents. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what you think.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm kind of happy this fight's finally happening because this is something I've been waiting for a long time, is to see Sean O'Malley face on true talent, like top 10 guys. I mean, he's now in the top 5, which is amazing. I think it's been kind of like a slow process, like almost like a grooming process the UFC's done for him in terms of building him up since the Dana White Contender Series. We've seen him when he just had like less tattoos and no colorful hair and just being outspoken, and now they just kept giving him good fights, building him up. And I want to see that investment kind of pay off now. I want to see this homegrown talent take on this scary Russian guy and Petr Yan. And to be honest, the way I look at it too is like, yeah, like there's some stats that are pretty favorable for Sean O'Malley being the underdog. You mentioned right now the size difference, him being 5'11", Petr Yan 5'7". Sean O'Malley also has a 5-inch reach advantage and a 2-inch leg reach advantage. And of course, yeah, Petr Yan has fought tougher competition like Jose Aldo, Aljamain Sterling, Corey Sandhagen, and so forth. But I think this is going to be the coming out party for Sean O'Malley. He throws 7.75 significant strikes landed per minute. I don't know, like I don't care who you are, but if you're throwing that high of a volume with that reach, I know he's going to definitely be tagging up Petr Yan, and I think people are going to be more surprised of what comes to be. It reminds me of like almost like when Conor McGregor was going to fight Nate Diaz, for example. Everyone thought Conor McGregor was going to walk over Nate Diaz, and then next thing you know, you see Nate Diaz win, and then you look at his face though too, and you're like, holy crap, like his face is busted up. Like he was able to put a hurt on him. So even if Sean O'Malley were to lose this, to say, I I think overall he's going to put a big cut. What I'm trying to say is he's overall going to just bust up Peter Yan pretty bad, win or lose. I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park for Peter Yan. He's a small, fast guy and has great Muay Thai, but Sean O'Malley's reach advantage, as long as he's smart and picks and strikes at the right time, he'll be fine. Peter Yan, he always has the possibility of just completely out wrestling Sean O'Malley and just pinning him down and grounding and pounding as well, though. I will admit that, but I want to see that investment pay off. So for this one, yeah, I'm going to go with the betting underdog and Sean O'Malley being the underdog of, plus 210 right now. So yeah, I got Sean O'Malley.
Yeah, and that's my bad. I didn't state earlier that Piotr Jan right now is the minus 280 favorite, with O'Malley the plus 210 underdog. Those are the biggest discrepancy to odds on the main card, at least. That being Piotr Jan is the biggest favorite on this card. But I don't know, man. This is one we're going to have to disagree on. Maybe we'll have to have a side bet here. I like O'Malley a lot, and there's nothing to take away from him here. And I respect his statistics, but in this situation where I'm thinking it's not as much about the statistics here. Piotr Jan has been in fights against like Corey Sandhagen where he won via unanimous decision, went 25 minutes and took 170 strikes. I think Piotr Jan's been there, done that with guys who will deliver high volume. So Sean O'Malley can sit there and dice him up all day long. Piotr Jan needs to go for leg kicks. And if he can really establish those leg kicks, I think Sean O'Malley is going to be a little scared. I mean, even last Saturday, I forget exactly who it was, but dude got kicked in his leg in the wrong spot twice, and it just went down. He was done. He couldn't fight anymore. I mean, I think Piotr Jan will be very smart at the distance to use his leg kicks. And then if he feels like he's in danger, to go for the Muay Thai, the wrestling, this and that. Because that's my other point, is that Sean O'Malley is claiming that he's got this wonderful ability on the ground and he's just waiting for someone to test him. Well, okay, you're going to get tested by one of the best in the world then. And that's not a good guy to be tested out right away. I think it's just going to go wrong. I respect Sean O'Malley, and I think that the fight goes the distance. This is a 3-rounder, if I'm not mistaken. It's not for a belt, so it's a 3-rounder. And the one thing that would concern me the most in betting for Jan here is that he is a slow starter, right? Piotr Jan is not the kind of guy to get a first-round knockout. In fact, he's only done that once in the UFC, which was his debut back in 2018. And ever since, he sticks in these fights and he wins them by decision, or he gets a knockout in at earliest the second round. So that's both a blessing and a curse, I think, for Piotr Jan in this case, because it shows me that he's ready to go for the long haul and he can make it easily 15, easily 25 minutes if he needs to. In this case, 15. But it would concern me as well that if he doesn't win round one because he's a slow starter and he's kind of reading Sean O'Malley, gathering information, blah, 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 then of course he's got to go, 2-0 in the second and third round. That would concern me a little bit because I just don't really see him knocking out Sean O'Malley. To me, it's got to be by submission or it's got to be by points. I personally would lean Piotr Jan by points.
There you guys have it. Yeah, Nick for Peter Yan by points, and I myself, I don't see Sean O'Malley wins by points, but I think people, aren't. I'm like, I don't know if how much I've given Sean O'Malley credit enough, but I definitely think he has a powerful punch, like just unbelievable knockout power for his size, and that's what I'm banking on, is that money shot in that puncher's chance. So, me in that high volume of strikes he throws along with his reach, I think there's just kind of like a something that is waiting to happen. So him being that huge of an underdog, that's why I'm going to go with Sean O'Malley finishing it within the 2.5 rounds. And as you noticed yourself, you got Peter Yan, and that just brings us to the next fight then of the night, and it's a lightweight bout between Beneil Dariush versus Mateusz Gamrot. Right now, Mateusz Gamrot is the betting favorite at minus 200, while Beneil Dariush is the betting underdog at plus 154. Nick, it's been a minute since we've seen Beneil Dariush. Last time we saw him, he won. He had a unanimous decision win over Tony Ferguson. That was back in May of 2021. It's been over a year. And he's coming in right now as the betting underdog. Gamrot, unbelievable record, 21-1. We saw him win against Arman Tsarukyan over the summer. Him being a plus 200. I think it seems pretty fair though. But it seems like both guys have wins over similar opponents in Diego Ferreira and Scott Holtzman. I'm not surprised why they made this fight. At first, I thought like, oh man, they're not giving Beneil Dariush a chance to really hang out in the top five, but it makes sense. I think this matchup, it's a fair matchup.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good fight for sure. Gamrot's coming off of a really impressive. Yeah, I remember discussing that fight between him and Sarukian when they headlined the fight night back in June. Man, that was an insanely close fight. And I don't know, the way I approach this one is personally, not everybody might agree, but personally, I think Sarukian, I think he's a better fighter. I think he's a harder fight. I think he's tougher to beat than Beneil Dariush right now. I think it's more impressive that Gamrot was able to win that by decision and get out of there. And another point that I think is important here is that Dariush, lately at least, because he fought twice in 2021, twice in 2020, and he's been on a great streak. But against most of those fighters, he's the only one performing takedowns. Tony Ferguson, 3 takedowns. Against Diego Ferreira, 5 takedowns. And it seems to be something he kind of likes to rely on. It is one of his strengths, and that's just not going to be the case here with Gamrot. He is an animal. I definitely think I give Gamrot the advantage on the ground. And, I think striking is going to be pretty similar. So that's enough for me, man. I like Gamrot. I was riding on him through the arm on fight when I got some money there. And I just think he's going to continue to ride high. I'm not sure Gamrot will necessarily be a champion, at least on this win, maybe on this run. Maybe he'll have to get to another top 5 fighter and lose, get some extra experience first, because Gamrot's still pretty new to the UFC scene. But I don't know. And this is I think an advantageous spot for him against Dariush, and I'm really heavily leaning on Gamrot here.
Yeah, you said Nick. I think I'm going with Gamrot winning via knockout. Reason being is Beneil Dariush. I mean, we've seen him also even not have a chin. I mean, the guy got knocked out by Alex Hernandez. So, granted, that was back in 2018, and I know it's not the same guy anymore. But just his inactivity is kind of what is the only thing that kind of I question. Uh, and other than that, just I don't see this fight really going down to the floor, like being on the ground that much. I mean, out of the two, I believe Gamera has better grappling. He does have a 4.83 takedown average, and his takedown defense is 90%. Beneil Dariush, he has an 81% takedown defense. So, yeah, I think it's just going to be a straight up fight on the feet, and I think they're going to be looking for lights out. So, and and when it comes to that, I'm going to go with Gamera getting the KO win, KO/TKO.
Ooh, that's interesting, man. You might be onto something there. I hadn't previously thought specifically about the KO win, but yeah, man. I guess it's because the recency for me is seeing Mataush kind of calculated against Sarukian. I can't say that name for some reason tonight. But regardless, you know who I'm talking about. And I think you make a great point in that Dariush's chin is not established. It's been over a year since he's fought, even against Tony Ferguson. I'm going to take Amrot now. You know what? I'll agree with you. Let's put the podcast line right there. Let's put it all on to win by knockout for Mataush Gamrot.
Let's go.
So, speaking of let's go, we've got the opening fight to discuss for this main card of UFC 280. There's a few exciting prelims, but after those prelims, to open up the main card will be a women's flyweight bout between Caitlin Chikagian and Manon Fiorot. This is I take a deep breath here, man. This is an interesting matchup. I think Chikagian is fun to watch. We've seen her fight twice already this year, and she's been doing pretty well. It's hard to find much to knock her on. Of course, not perfect. It was a split decision win against Amanda Ribas. Got taken down a couple of times. It was close. It certainly was. Fiorot, on the other hand, fought 3 times. I mean, she's 4-0 in the UFC. Definitely a lot less experience, but the skills are there, man. The skills are clearly there. The statistics are there. Much like striking volume wise, and the ability to take down. She doesn't have any UFC submissions under her belt, but she is not afraid to take people down, and in fact has logged at least one takedown in all 4 of her UFC fights. And based on what I'm seeing from previous fighters, it doesn't seem like Chikagian's that hard to take down. So before I hand it over to you, Jose, I will say that Firo is the betting favorite at minus 200, and Chikagian is the underdog at plus 154. So to have the house, I feel like household name Chikagian. She is a pretty well known fighter, and it's significant for her to be the underdog. Jose, what do you think?
Yeah, that's surprising. It's not like I'm not used to seeing Caitlin Chokagian be the betting underdog in fights, but here it is in this case. And yeah, I just that just shows all the respect people have for Manfred. And that being said, I think I'm gonna have to go with Caitlin Chokagian. And then if I see her as the underdog, I mean, I've never gone against this girl. I even thought she was going to beat Jessica Andrade back in 2020. That Valentino Shevchenko fight. I mean, when you look at it and break it down, the level of competition the two have faced, you can't even compare. The fact that Manfred is the betting favorite based off the level of competition she's seen, yeah, she's a finisher in terms of she's got power, that KO power to put girls out, but she's not fighting Valentina Shevchenko. She's not fighting the Jessica Eyes, Irene Aldana's. She hasn't fought Liz Carmouche. These are some big names. Jennifer, she has beaten Jennifer Maya. I will give her that. But other girls like Cynthia Calvillo, Amanda Ribas, like uh, that's the level of competition I want to see her face and beat first. And that means Caitlin Chokagian, her kickboxing IQ is just phenomenal. She's just a strong point style fighter. And she plays it safe. She really plays it safe. She doesn't care that if she's going to put you out or not. Like you can really see that she just wants to walk away with a victory and just prove like, hey, I just pieced you up many times, and it doesn't matter whether they really hurt or not. She's really smart at playing that point system. And her record overall and all her experience, I think that vet experience is what's going to help her get a win.
Yeah, the experience is a great point, and it's probably the biggest divider between these two fighters. Chikagian's really not, for all the experience we're discussing her having, it almost makes it sound like she's 40 years old. She's 1 year older than Firo. I mean, it's very fascinating to see how much more experience she has. Firo has 10 pro fights on her MMA record to Chikagian's 22. So just pure volume wise, Chikagian stepped in the ring a lot more, and of course stepped in the ring against some way higher competition than Firo. But it is one of those spots where I'm gonna ignore that. I personally am going to ignore that. I think Firo is really impressive, man. She's like I mentioned earlier, she does have an ability to take fighters down, but that's not necessarily what she's using to win fights. I mean, she'll definitely use it to manage the pace, but she's never submitted anybody in her pro career. I definitely don't anticipate that to be the case against Chikagian, but I do anticipate that to be something that Chikagian has to consider at least a threat or a part of Firo's game plan. So personally, man, Firo may not have seen the previous experience, the championship level competition, but she has seen some pretty high level. Maybe not top, but Tabitha Ritchie, Jennifer Maia are pretty impressive opponents. To knock out Tabitha Ritchie in the second round, the absolute discrepancy in that fight it was pretty major to me. I will be happy to take the favorite here, Manon Firo.
Oh wow, okay, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because that Tabitha Ricci. The only thing about that fight though is like Tabitha Ricci. She's just so young and still getting started in the UFC as well. Like I can't put that TKO win and compare that to like a win over Cynthia Calvillo or even the younger Shevchenko sister Antonina. So yeah, that being said, like in the last two fights that Faraz gone into have been in decisions. So if this fight makes it to decision, I don't see it going any other way other than to Caitlin Chokagian. I mean, she is a decision winning queen. So that being said, I think I'm gonna have to go with Caitlin Chokagian winning this by unanimous decision. And as a matter of fact, I'm gonna go with she's actually my underdog of the week. Caitlin Chokagian, she'll be my dog of the week.
Okay. Okay. I love it, man. I love it. So yeah, I definitely don't mind disagreeing, man, because it also goes to show like these are great matchups that the UFC are putting on, and going back to your bet, I totally like it. I think that's the best chance that Chikagian has is winning by points. I'm going to actually say, to go a little deeper on my pick for Fear Out, I'm going to say by knockout. She is going to take the lights out of Chikagian to open UFC 280, and everybody's going to go wild thinking, wow, we have 4 more fights after that nonsense just happened. But that concludes the 5-fight main card for UFC 280. I wanted to recap a brief couple of picks for us. And as usual, we will release our locks and underdogs officially on Saturday. You guys got a preview into what my lock and what Jose's underdog will be, but definitely give us a follow at Moneyline MMA on Twitter to get those final picks on Saturday. And to wrap it up here, Jose and I had a couple disagreements. I got Oliveira in the main event. Jose's got the challenger. We both agreed on Sterling. Good look at him. I think he's going to be the best guy to bet on this week is on an individual basis. Petr Yan and Sean O'Malley is another one Jose and I disagreed on. So it's going to be tough for you guys, I think, to make your bets this week. And it's going to be tough for us to put a parlay together because typically, we don't want to make a parlay that's got a bunch of disagreements from top to bottom on it. So it might not be, we might not be able to get it to 5 legs or anything crazy like that this round. And you guys are always welcome to alter it how you want. So if you agree with Jose on the main event, go ahead and put Islam on your parlays. We're just giving you what our best lock is or what we think is most likely to hit. And at this point, it's a 2-legger for the main event. It's Sterling and Mateusz Gamrot at plus 136. We both agreed that those guys were going to get the job done. And, Dariush is not to be messed with, but Gamrot's a beast. And, obviously Jose and I disagreed on the most recent fight we discussed, the opening. So that'll be our parlay, the Moneyline MMA parlay of the main card at least. Now, I don't know about Jose, but I did want to briefly discuss a couple of these prelims because I think most people can agree that this has got to be the most stacked UFC card of the entire year. I mean, we've got some nuts fights like the prelim headliner between Bilal Muhammad and Sean Brady. One of my favorite fighters fights before that, Kyle Baralho, a guy that you've heard me discuss in the past and heard me win bets on. And to even before them, light heavyweights Volcano Zedmir and Nikita Krylov. I mean, those are some big names to be showing up in the middle of the prelim card. I mean, that's some insane stuff there, Jose. Personally, got Bilal Muhammad all day long. We might as well add him onto the parlay. I couldn't believe it. We were discussing before the show. This guy's somehow a plus 114 underdog. I mean, feel free to chime in if you have any thoughts, but shoot, that's almost like free money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, without a doubt. When I saw that, I'm like, yo, we have to hop on that ASAP. I mean, I don't know. Maybe people are just like Sean Brady, definitely nothing to mess with. But come on, this is Bilal Muhammad. This dude's huge. This dude is he's gone against some big names as well. And even though Sean Brady's undefeated, I mean, it's been a minute since we've seen him, almost a year. I don't know, man. Like, I'm definitely just feeling really confident in Bilal Muhammad with this one.
Yeah, not definitely Sean Brady's a beast. Don't get me wrong, but shoot, I don't know. I doubted Muhammad against Vicente Luque, and I was wrong. And I think, like you said, Muhammad's just a big dude. They really are a similar size, him and Sean Brady. But I just think Muhammad has a strength advantage still. It'll be a fascinating fight to watch nonetheless because, yes, we are talking about an undefeated fighter. I'm just not sure that the previous experience he has quite matches up. So we'll see. That'll be a crazy good fight to watch as a prelim. Um, Moving on from that, I know I mentioned Baralho earlier. He's a guy I've won money on in the past, and unfortunately, he's no longer an underdog. That's a guy I've bet money on twice now in different scenarios where he was able to beat Omar Gatsiev, and then further Armen Petrosian as underdogs twice. And he just continue to cash tickets, and you guys will bet that he can continue to cash tickets. He's a minus 245 favorite in this fight, but it will not matter. He will come in fighting Makhmud Muradov, and he will clean him up. I mean, it'll be easy at that point for Barajo. He's going to make easy business of it. And the final prelim that I think is very significant. Of course, there's more prelims on here that are going to be fun to watch, but very significant to me. Volkan Ozedmir and Nikita Krylov. Wow, light heavyweights that have been there, done that. I mean, Ozedmir has fought Daniel Cormier. Oh boy, this is a guy I love to come see in the ring, and I love that he's being doubted. Ozedmir is a plus 144 underdog. I don't know, man. That's just like seeing some of these other legends as underdogs, and just like how I get that Krylov is coming off a win against Gustafsson, which is phenomenal. Both of these guys have kind of been there and done that with the top echelon of the light heavyweight division. So if anything, I think these odds should be almost even. Like neither of these guys should really be that big of an underdog. But to see Ozedmir being plus 140, man, give me that money. I don't know, man. Yeah, feel free to chime in if you have any thoughts on that one or any of the other prelims.
Oh, of course, all day. Volkan Ozdemir, all day. If he's the betting underdog, throw me on. Sign me up. He does have knockout power himself. He's fought for the championship belt, like you mentioned. Yeah, seeing him as the betting underdog, I'm for it.
So that about wraps up our betting section then. And just to close it off, if you guys really want to take some risks here, and if you agree on the Bilal Muhammad and the Ozedmir picks as underdogs, we can add in Barajo and make a 5-leg parlay for plus 1636, folks. I mean, that's incredible. You're making $16 on a $1 bet. That's something to consider. I will say that's something I'm putting my personal money on because that looks juicy. I think that's loaded with a lot of potential and great returns. So that's going to wrap it up for UFC 280 Moneyline MMA. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week.